The voice is spoken, and we of the internet have come together in a threesome, not the kind which you pay extra for, to talk to you about Age of Sigmar.
A free threesome? A threesome.
A Sigmarsome.
Welcome to Always Strikes Last.
Hello. Hello. Hello there. Hi. You can all tell here it's another episode of the Always Strikes Late podcast.
Yes. Oh yeah.
All of us are in
it's the same podcast. We're just all very tired.
And it's late no matter where we are.
Or early.
I feel like that's late night if you're waking up that early, right?
That's fair.
So.
Welcome to Always Strikes Last /late. I'm Miles, and I'm joined by Matt and Jack as per usual. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for all joining us, even if it's not a witching hour where you are sitting today.
There we go. And Matt, it's a very special late night because you have a big day tomorrow.
I do. Some would call it a big day. I'll call it a 2 and 3 and I'm happy
there you
day, go. Or maybe a 2 and 1 and I'm happy for the day.
For the day, I got you. Yeah.
But this is the first of 2 days, right? This is a GT you're doing. Man.
Yeah. So Emerald City Open, Victoria's Secret hosts at least one every year. It's a nice, decent sized GT. Miles knows the place, but this time they went back to Blue Sky Wizards Hobbies.
Oh, fun! It's not in the mall,
in Bremerton. Yeah,
I did enjoy it at the mall, but
there was a lot of space in the mall for sure.
It was kind of weird because we were like in the mall kind of before it opens or like as it's like really kind of opening at all. And then you're just like, it's weird being in a mall these days.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it was, if you think back on it, it was weird being in a mall previously though.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
right?
a good, you make a strong argument there.
Especially if you worked at a mall or you did retail. I got suckered into some retail when I was younger. And I remember that being awkward as hell in a mall.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe anecdotal to mall tournaments, but just for visual speculation in your brains, guys, the first tournament I ever played was in a mall. Ooh. And it was in the center of one of those concourses where like 4 big box stores came together. And nice. It was because the game store was a kiosk in that mall. That was like the space they could get it. So it was the most surreal fishbowl effect of having like these tables just kind of being wandered around by a great gyre of people who knew nothing about Warhammer and were very confused.
Oh my gosh.
That must have been awesome and also terrifying all at once.
It was both things, but kind of fun. So you saw kids from my school kind of wandering over and ask what I was doing. Like, I ate like a Arby's burger and drank a big Jamocha shake, but it was pretty magical. At the same time.
Nice.
Yeah, so the ECO tomorrow at Blue Sky Wizard Games. The name of that store always confuses me.
It's like Blue Sky Hobby, and I just attach another couple of words on it, and then it's good. It's cool. An interesting little place in Bremerton. One of the problems they used to have before is it was like a mall but condensed in. I know other players who have played there have been like, wow, this is not enough space for a GT as we're playing a GT.
Yep.
So they have graciously decided to finally just rent out the whole bottom room. We've got, I think it's a buffet or some food is provided to everybody, nice. Included in the ticket. It's an awesome thing that they're doing. Props to Matthew Kangeezer, who's putting it on and TOing it. I think they came up with a great solution for players there, as well as, making sure that, the restaurant is made whole as well. So
sure. Nice.
Yeah, I'm kind of stoked for it. That's always been the one thing that gets me there. Like everybody is all about the the crazy terrain there. But I tend to love it, except for that one thing
that one
getting shot at.
That one little church on a hill that I hate so much. That other than that,
that always worked out in your favor against me.
That's true.
So, I don't know how much you could hate it. For context here, back when I was still doing Dragon Ogre heavy stuff, Miles was kicking it with KO and just dropping spells on me and then saying, "Hey, I'm going to stick you behind this hill. You're going to have to move up. And you're going to take a hit, and then you're going to have to move over, and then you're going to take a hit, and then you got to come down from this hill to get me, and you're going to take a hit." It was fun.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
Why don't you just walk over the 6-inch tall hill?
Yeah. Even as Dragon Ogres at that point in time, that was rough.
It was your hill to die on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I'll be here all night.
But that's exciting. So, Matt, what's your list for tomorrow? What are you playing?
Yeah, tell us the secrets.
So I know in our last podcast I was pretty dead set on my Beastmen and my Dragon Ogres, and I'm cheating on them.
Uh-oh.
I had that last minute dash, and I had to have a nice conversation with myself and say, you know what? My Beasts of Chaos will be there, and they'll only get better. And I already know how to play them. What would be really fun for a GT? Let's take this army that I've been building for about 6 months, is not finished at all with the paint schemes because I've only got their flesh color down. And that's got to have at least 30, 60... 10, 20.
It looks like a big tray. I was looking at the pictures you posted
30
on our Discord.
That has at least 70 models.
Nice. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Yes, our super fancy Discord.
Now with channels.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, and it's Bonesplitters.
Yep. It is all orc on pork, except for one unit of 20 orc, not on pork.
Oh.
That also have the Savage Big Boss, so I can get that 8-inch move out of him instead of the piddly 5-inch move at the beginning of the game.
Nice.
And so all orcs, 3 wizards, all of them just have the blizzard. So wizard with blizzard.
Nice.
Oh man, I'm gonna have so many rhymes and songs tomorrow. Now that I'm thinking about it,
it's gonna be great.
Your army is so Seussian right now. Just in like the pork and the orc and the
nice. Wizards and blizzards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been really excited about this army just because I love cavalry. We've established this. But what's better than an all cavalry army? An all cavalry army of insane naked orcs riding on soon to be bacon. Like,
nice.
This is very true. You know, one of the things I find interesting about this particular choice, Matt, is I can tell right now from looking at it that you are a secret meta chaser, but just the opposite side of it.
Okay. Now
it's a race to the bottom.
That's right. Now this leads to the question of what I really wanted out of the tournament, right? So, so I could have gone there, probably gone 3-2 at the least, or 4-1 with the Dragon Ogre list. Pretty confident that I can do that. But the orcs, they needed paint. So when you need to paint your army, sign them up for a tournament, put your list in right when the list is due, like the last due date, and make it orcs so you can't change it. And then you suddenly have a tabletop painted army that has to be made. I mean, I just finished about 2 hours ago.
Nice.
I didn't finish the army. I got a tabletop ready, And then I was like, okay, I'm finished. The army is not finished, but I am finished.
There you go.
Yeah, you got them to the place where they can be presented onto the tray.
Indeed.
I'm looking at the most recent MetaWatch article, and they're not even listed.
I know, I love it.
That's what's so sweet about this. Like they're going to come out of literally nowhere.
Well, and for a long time, the whole meta win rate for Bonesplitters was just like one guy.
Yeah, right? It was the wizard who's now 170 points for the little guy.
No. I meant it was literally one player, or like 2 or 3 players.
Oh,
who were holding up. Yeah, who were just like completely savanting this army.
I thought it was like one style of list, right? Because they're a wound sink, and then you have the mask.
But it's their meta representation was like so small. Like if you go to like T Sports and look at like how many people are actually playing them, it's like less than 0.1% of the meta plays Bonesplitters.
The 1%, huh? I don't know if I can get behind the 1% playing only Bonesplitters. If it's less than 1%, then we're going back to 1800 standards. So
it's point. Hang on, I'll get it. You keep going. I'm looking it up.
So I'll be the oil baron 1800s orc on pork player. Oh, man, now I have to get a monocle and a top hat when I play.
That would be amazing.
And you have to get some sort of like pork product to just give to opponents. I mean, there has to be some stick with this.
Just show up with bacon.
Or like
because you have so many like orcs on porks, just give them spam because you're spamming units, and it's also pork.
There we go.
Nice.
There we go. I see. That's much nicer than what I was thinking. I was thinking I just show up on the day with 3 packs of uncooked bacon. So the first player is going to be happier. The last player is going to be like, really? And the middle player is going to be like, man, there is something really wrong with this guy. Is he going to give me both of these, or like what's going on?
There's a lot of opportunity for interesting moments with that approach for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna enjoy it. But man, this was a great exercise in making sure that you stick to a plan, right? So I'll throw the list out here. It's 3 maniac weird noms.
Mm-hmm.
One of them with glowing tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
For the 4+ shrug, one with Mork's bony bits, because I mean, at first I just clicked it because I just love the name, and then I realized it was the one that I wanted, which is the 24-inch range of a monster. You get +1 to cast, and I think dispel as well. Yep, and unbinding. That one's got fast on, which means it can move once per game in the hero phase, so I can get up out in front of the rest of the army, maybe grab an objective to take it away at the start of the turn or something if I need to do something, or in the case of basically the idea of this army, get in an unexpected spot to cast Hoarfrost. So let somebody think that they're setting themselves up to not be hit by somebody with Hoarfrost on the unit. So accompanying them is 3 units of 10 Savage Boar Boys with Savage Stickas, and then 3 units of 5 Savage Boar Boy Maniacs, because they're just amazing. Again, this army is all about the meme of the names. A Savage Big Boss. I think I already said he's got Great Hunter for his command trait. Lets half the army move 8 instead of 5. And then 20 Savage Orcs just running up after the Porks with their slow little legs. So that's it. And I feel real bad for whatever tank army I'm going to run into, because the goal of the army is essentially have cavalry. But
have cavalry.
Check.
What's the done? Check.
The second part is that it is going to have, 3 very big movable blocks of potential mortal wound output. Shrugs are available, and they're kind of decently tanky. Tanking them in units of 10, that's 30 wounds to get through. And then if you chew through those, that's 9 dice I can roll at the beginning of every hero phase to start bringing guys back. So
nice.
Outside of that, I am taking the Icebone, so they're throwing mortals on 6s to wound, as well as having exploding 6s to hit.
Nice.
Which means the army can drown armies in dice, right? I've done a couple of test games with it, and one against very, very great player just down the street from me, Brian, who is playing the squig list that I just, it's ever since Ricky Fisher, squigs have just gotten in my head. Can't beat him.
Dude, people have said that squigs have, Gloomspite's fallen off, and I don't know, but they're still nasty.
Oh, they're still nasty, and I think that's why they're still in my head. Playing back the game, it was still a 50-50 for me. Even losing all priority rolls, it was still a 50-50. Came down to more of a decision on the loss for that game. So
disheartening for sure.
Oh, it's great. It's great to know that I could have and recognize the problems and my disbelief in a unit when it could have cleared another unit, right? Learning when to sacrifice the thing so that I can, get the bigger thing. And that's
a little stats for our discussion here. So from the 2022-2023 season 2 GHB, so this is last GHB, out of all of the matches played, out of 13,000 matches played, 10 were with Bonesplitters.
Wow.
Okay, so where did they all go? Are they just all sitting on a shelf? Because if somebody's got a bunch of Bonesplitters on foot, they should give them to me, because I will play them.
Most likely the majority of the active Bonesplitters are in your shelf right now, freshly painted.
I know for a fact that King Geezer has twice the amount of models that I have for Bonesplitters, so he may have hoarded some too. So it may just be us, yeah. It's the mats.
all jokes aside, I mean, you can almost guarantee that no one will see it coming. In terms of, having played it recently or having thought about it. So any of the tricks you have up your sleeve could be really interesting. And I think you said that you have 3 of the Blizzard Wizards in this list. So there's 3 people willing to throw themselves away. And did you have Wargog Prophets as well? I think it
was the Hoarfrost, not the Blizzard. Sorry, I just call everything from this GHB Blizzard now. That's probably not a great thing to say in a podcast, but it's not very helpful.
All the ice magics, yes.
all the same Hoarfrost. So the idea there is that I could have gone with I was looking at the spells available, and normally I go with there's a tusk spell that adds +2 rend to only the tusks. And I was thinking about it and I thought, if I want to have the option to do something, I should be able to pick one or the other melee profile, right? So let's say I know I'm going to be in a spot where I'm going to be hitting a line and a lot of my unit is going to be bunched up. Well, the spears have 2-inch range and the tusks only have 1. So I can use the Hoarfrost and put it on the spears as opposed to only putting the other spell on the tusks. And then all of a sudden I'm hitting with a lot more rend for each attack. So there was a little method to the madness other than let's shove all these orcs on some porks into the opposition. But yeah, it should be interesting. all I can say is that was a lot of models to paint over a week.
I'm very impressed with that. I mean, I guess maybe we should take a moment just to think about that, because this is sort of a seminal moment we've all hit individually as modelers and painters and tournament players, and that you want to play with a thing. You have this grand idea. You've committed to it. Time is not behaved. The tournament is coming up very quickly. You got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. So, I'd love to hear more about your journey, Matt, like where you started, what it was looking like 7 days ago, what you went through, and how you got it to the admissible state and what that admissible state looks like.
Yeah, sure. So I think, I had kind of made the decision to actually put the list in 7 days ago exactly. But before then, I had about 3 different armies I was looking at. One of them being the Dragon Ogres. And I had played a couple of games with them. I believe we already talked about it. And they're really solid, right? I knew I could take them higher. And then I started looking around at, the others and thinking, what's one that I haven't played in a while? What is an army that I think I could have fun with, and just not be bringing the same thing everybody else is bringing. As I twist my hipster mustache and put on my hipster fedora here. I really like variation, right? When I go to a GT, it's really kind of disheartening to see everybody playing the same thing. So that kind of, I think after, the third game, if you're running into the same style list, it just becomes a slog.
Yeah. We've got a one-dayer coming up this weekend, which unfortunately I'm going to have to miss, but I'm told there are 4 Null Myriad OBR players coming.
That's great because by round 3, everybody's going to know how to fight Null Myriad at least.
Yeah, right.
Every single person.
I'm sure they're all Gavin's list. It's just like it's what it is. At least I don't have to play it.
Yeah.
That's true. You get the blow-by-blow later of like a bunch of anti-magic skeletons staring at each other.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure I'm going to be running into them. So I'm looking forward to it. I want to see how this list does. But back to why I'm going earlier than 7 days, right? So when it came down to it, Dragon Ogres, I kind of set them aside because we're halfway into the season. If I'm actually going to go to play hard, I'm going to go to play hard, right? And I want to make sure that I haven't looked at my points. I have not really cared for my points this season. I think after that 1 year of getting the little Dragon Ogre trophy, I was done for a little while.
Sure.
Getting the BOC trophy was like, okay, cool. That's awesome. Even in the insanity of the COVID era and all that, that was a goal attained. So not that I don't love them, but there are other models that I have. And one of the things I've been doing over the course of these past 2 seasons is I have so many armies, but I'm not playing half of them. Why am I not playing half of them? It's not because I don't like running, certain armies. Some are easier to play than others, but it's more I have ideas that I want to play, right?
Sure.
Chariot list, all chariot list in Tzeentch, right? Let's just do all Flamer chariots. Let's do all Orcon Pork. Let's do all Black Knights, yada, 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 yada. And I love the challenge of building those lists that are kind of anti-meta. And so with most of the armies, I have assembled them almost there. And most of them, I've got the paint schemes down, but I haven't found that kind of one little thing that speaks to me in the paint scheme that says, okay, this is the exact direction I want to go with this. I can now commit to it, right? So I was looking at the Tzeentch. I've got 3 chariot flamers, flamer chariots to paint, and that's it. It's ready to go. And I'm looking at the orcs. and I have 70 something models, right? 60, 70 models to paint. And
you had a few of them with some paint on them, if I recall.
And so that's what I'm leaning up to here. So I have been working on that recipe to get the orc skin exactly as I want it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so generally, as I do a lot of this stuff, or my process usually is to make it so I can batch paint things so that they are up to an acceptable level, and that the army itself would be, if I were insane enough, easy enough to go through in one whole go, right? I like the uniformity of look for a lot of things, and I like to have my recipes down, and I like to be able to add variation in things. So there's a lot of like, okay, well, I've got these two colors for the generic green for the skin. Okay, how do I want to make these orcs look slightly different? Okay, well, I've got 5 different washes. I've got a flesh wash, an Agrax earth shade, I've got a red wash, I've got all these. Okay, now we're gonna mix around on this. And I finally got it to where I got through all of the skin on the orcs, which is the hardest part, because it's orcs on porks, and
right, they're naked.
Bonesplitters are all naked.
Yeah, so
most of that surface area. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so next came the, what's the other base color? And I'd figured that out just the other day after kind of like, oh, do I want to give them like the standard khaki? No, I'm going to be unhappy with that. So I painted one orc with just all black and white, and it looked like the epiphany moment for me was like, oh, these orcs are in a metal band now. They're death metal orcs. Yes. And I was like, okay, it clicked. I can batch paint these now. Like I can do all of this if I am just dedicating, 1 hour a night, maybe 2 hours a night. I can just bam, 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 bam through this because I have like an end goal and it's defined, It's the classic designer problem of like, give me the end goal. I need to know, where I'm going so I can design my way to get there.
What does done look like? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I knew I had one problem walking into it, and that was going to be differentiation of units. And that's really what that practice game was about, was how am I going to define the difference between these units of everybody having only green skin and black, right? And that was the only thing that I wanted to kind of wrench that I wanted to throw in my way before I went ahead and put the list in. So that's why I put the list in. Was it'll help me finish this army and at least get it to a point where I can like say, hey, your experimentation phase is done, right?
Right.
And then B, it was like, okay, well, I'll still have a challenge along the way. I've got the main things figured out, and I can, I'll get them to a point where they look like they're going to be tabletop ready. But I can also, like, if I see something I don't like, I can always go back and change it, because the spot colors that are going to define the different units are going to be minimal, and I can adjust the shade, on the model. I can add more highlights in certain areas, et cetera, et cetera. But if I set it up on the table, I'm not going to be embarrassed for my level that I like to bring to a game.
Sure.
And I think that's something kind of everybody has to like do, right? Is know what they're comfortable with bringing to a table, and know what they're, and for me, I think like, for me, it's really important that if I set my models down on the table, that my opponent is going to know what I'm putting down, right? Like if I point out the model, they've got to be able to see, like, know what it is. That's really hard with Bonesplitters. So, that was part of defining the colors. So I did that with, change the color of the pork for the maniacs.
I see, some pork variation there. Yeah.
Yep. So the porks are gray, and then everybody else is a different color of brown. And then the second thing is like, it's not really embarrassment, but more like I personally don't enjoy setting up on a table and seeing, the 3 color minimum requirements that a lot of people have, like set up in front of me. Like I really like seeing something that somebody put time and care into, because for me, it's kind of an indication of how people appreciate the game. It provides me a little bit of an insight into my opponent and whether they're there to just win the game by playing it only because that's the only thing that they came to do, right? Didn't come for the hobby or the enjoyment of the lore, yada, yada, yada. And that's totally a way of actually not exactly, or that's totally an assumption on my part. But I feel like if I were to show up with gray or just basic army, that's what I'd be indicating to my opponent.
I gotcha. Well, but we've all had those moments. I like to show up fully painted too, and some tournaments I don't make it. And so typically, like on a one day or event, there's usually no painting requirement in my experience. And so you can play something a little more loosey goosey, or maybe you didn't get it finished in time. But GTs tend to have, the painting requirements, which is usually three colors and basing.
Yep.
Yep.
As defined by the wherever it is.
That Games Workshop rubric, right? That came out that one time to sort of illustrate what battle ready meant. Was that what it was?
It was very loosey goosey, that battle ready illustration.
Room for interpretation on that for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it does beg the question of, like you say, 3 colors, but I
it's
think
basing a color.
What?
It's priming a color, yeah.
It's priming a color, yeah.
The easiest one to get down.
I definitely remember very early in my career being assured that primer was a color.
Yeah. Yep.
I think sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. And that's, just a really tough, not everything is straightforward in life, as I think you guys will find. Sometimes it's the gray area.
I feel like that was
our primer, not a base color.
Yeah. Gray areas are definitely primer, but I feel like that may have been like a holdover from 40K, right? If somebody primes their army red for Blood Angels, that's a color.
Sure,
they're not going to.
No, that is a color.
Right?
Absolutely, and you can paint your army in such a way where the primer is a color.
Yeah, and so that's where I can see where it came from, right?
Yeah,
I feel like there was a time shift in this though, because I kind of remember hearing the same things back in the day, where primer wasn't necessarily a color when it was black or white, because those are the only primers out there. But then if you went with that extra step, once they started coming out with different colors of rattle can, of course it felt like a magic color, but then maybe that perception has shifted over time.
I would imagine, as we get more exposure, right, to like more interesting hobbies or more interesting ways to like create almost dioramic effects with the models themselves, right? Our standards kind of jump. It's
sure.
So like, I can definitely see that.
Hey, Matt, could I ask an opinion question of you, which is, if you're looking at someone's painted army and some of their models really only have 2 colors on them, but they've hand painted the base, like little hand painted little like cobblestones onto the bases, right? Like little 2D cobblestones. Is that color or is that basing?
Now, am I saying this as a TO judge? Or just as a random dude who's enjoying the cobblestone bases?
Let me paint an even broader picture of this. Just imagine everything was painted, but these models just were a little bit close to the edge, but they did have these hand illustrated cobblestone bases.
If they had illustrated cobblestone bases, then they'd get the best painting score ever for the painting rubric. But for the models themselves, I would still have to dock them.
Do you think that would still maybe like win best painted over like a painted orc over standing on top of a completely white Maw Crusher?
Well, I mean, by the painting rubric, I think they would actually fail because you have to have basing, right? That's have a 3-colored model, right? Because you have to have 3-color model and basing. Yeah. So both would fail in that instance to get best painted if I were TOing. I would like to say I'd like to hold a decent standard for it. I think one of the things that does too is it chases out a lot of that mentality of, okay, I'm coming here to only win, not have a good time. Right. Mm-hmm.
But I say this mainly because I, as a TO, personally robbed Jack of a best painted by interpreting the rubric against his favor.
It's true. It's an old chestnut, but it's a good one. And the example I used is also drawn from life. Great guy. Who was playing in that local tournament, and he had this beautifully painted army, except for his final model, which was big Maw Crusher on the big pie plate. Pie plate was black. No paint, no base on it.
I think it had some rocks or something, but it was minimal. It was very minimal. The Maw Crusher itself was just primed.
Just primed, and then clearly a white primer, but not like the fancy one.
But the orc on top of the Maw Crusher, fully painted,
beautifully painted, magnetized, plopped on there. Also was able to go on his pig, I think, when he wanted to.
I mean, it's wonderful that he was able to get the orc painted. In my opinion, if he wanted a better painting score, he should have made a different list.
Sure,
he didn't need a better painting score because he won.
The bar was the bar was
that is particularly a low bar.
There was a very low bar in this event. It was like one of the first Age of Sigmar events we'd even run at the club, and so it was really just Jack and this other guy in contention at all.
Well, I would.
Everybody else got a 0. Yeah.
Having not been the TO at that event, I would have given it to Jack out of pure favor alone.
There we go.
I appreciate that.
Because I wasn't the TO, so I would have been like, I would have been standing behind Jack, hyping his model up, and then been like, "Well, look at this guy. That's not even a ghost Gorgrunna. There's not even a wash on that ghost."
Yeah.
It is such a funny example, though, especially in light of this conversation, because that was a great time and certainly had some interesting moments, but it really did imprint the idea that when you're going to an event that has certain standards, even beyond just getting on the table physically, but to make sure that you check the boxes and do all right, or that maybe your model doesn't get pulled. You got to make sure you have the minimums. You have to make sure it doesn't fail on those different box checks.
Yeah, and the painting rubrics are an interesting thing. I'll actually put the kind of most used in at least the Pacific Northwest scenes painting rubric up, and maybe that can be something we can talk with people on in the Discord of let's see if it passes all the painting rubric, right? That'd be an awesome thing. I know that'd be helpful for me for having you guys check those lists off for me. But that kind of feeds back into the prep for this week, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm just gonna jump us back there.
Nice.
So one of the main things that I really wanted to do with this army, and I like to do it with most of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is to have them have a themed opponent. And my themed opponent from my other armies is the Fire Slayers, who are in a wintry volcano setting.
Okay.
And so I'd finally gotten everything ready. That was another huge factor, is I knew how I wanted to do the basing on these models. I had gotten all the hobby stuffs that I needed. I got my fake snow. I got my kind of craggy dirt all ready to go. And so what I did was get all of the models up to where I could get them based without any washes or anything that I'd be adding later. Mm-hmm. Getting down onto the base and kind of ruining that work, right? So went through, got all my initial stuff on. I think it was on a Sunday night when I was finally like, okay, good to go. Everything's in. I've had my little practice game. I don't think I'm going to do well, but whatever, I've committed. So now I need a painted army, right?
Right.
So sat down, got my first basing run. I've got some great Phileo earth stuff that I use. I love that stuff because it's got the texture. And if you add an ink over top of it, you suddenly have a lot of depth. So get that down on the models.
Nice. The basing goop technology that's come out in the past, I don't know, 5 years, 6, since I started anyway. This hobby, has really changed a lot of the game. Like so many of my armies, the basing is like goop plus rock.
Yep. And me, it used to be just going and grabbing sand from the front lawn.
Yeah, no, you didn't pay $12.99 for Citadel brand sand.
You're only allowed to use the official stuff. They can tell.
Yeah, but when you live in a city, that's when you find like the glass and stuff in there too. So it was always, I was paying for it in different ways. We'll say that. So I got the basing down, and takes a good day for that to dry. Already got a head start as far as I'm concerned, right? My skin is already done. The hardest part of the army is done. The hardest part of the army is the decision on what you're going to paint it like.
So let's just have a freeze frame for a second to make sure that the audience can understand how your progression is. So first you sign your name in blood and submit the army list. You're going to be doing Iron Jaws, Icy Iron Jaws. Bonesplitters. Right. Relegated to the other one, which
Ice Splitters. Ice Bone Splitters.
I was confused. I was confusing it with the one that generally goes to the tabletop. But I'm sorry. But back to the Bone Splitters. So you have the decision made. And this is 7 days ago. You have the skin already done because this is the part you'd been working on and you'd cracked the code on. And so you were kind of starting from skin on 70 plus models, but you had to do the basic. So a day and a half passed. We're in the Monday territory, and you've done maybe Sunday, and you've done all the basing and the skin. That's where we are, right?
Nope. So on Monday, I've done the start of the basing, right? Because it needs a full day to dry. So I've gotten the earth texture down. And then this is going to be the first time that I'm using the snow stuff. So I have to, Monday night, I have to figure out how it works. I have to figure out how can I make it look like the snow is melting in places. Kimmy was gracious enough to sit down with me and put little grass tufts at random on different ones.
Very nice.
Wait. You enlisted Kimmy on the solo spiritual quest of forcing yourself to finish an army? This is cheating. She
did. I can't say how many she did. Maybe about half the models, 30 models. I'm going to say 30 models.
It's wonderful she helped you. I'm just simply giving you a hard time.
if it makes me feel any better, I did go back and put on way more, so I doubled up my shrubs. So
okay.
So there. Ha me.
Okay, hey, you're doing it. It's a labor love. So this is Monday. Monday's snow day. Right?
So Monday's snow day and shrubberies, snows and shrubberies. I came with a herring and I cut that forest out.
I was gonna say
this is excellent.
Yeah,
the Monty Python orcs.
So so figured out the snow fairly quickly. I had some watered down bases, make sure everything was random. If there's one thing I hate, it's uniformity. So everything is good and random. Get done with Monday, and I've got all snowy shrubbery bases, right? And so I know I have my black, just basic stuff for them. So like a couple of the robes, a couple of everything else. And again, I want to keep them with variation. Unified orcs just feels a little weird to me. Like when I eventually start painting Iron Jaws, I can't have them all the same color. That's going to be so weird. They got to have some blood mixed in their paint somewhere. And there's so many different types of blood, right? So, so the first pass that I took was, I believe it was Tuesday. Pulled out some Abaddon Black. That contrast paint is amazing. And then just hit random articles of clothing, whether it was binding on the wrists, whether it was a cloak, and hit random spots with black. That way I can make sure that, I had variation, but I also had the underlying theme down, right? So I have the underlying theme of the black random clothing. I have the, excuse me, the skin, and then I have the basic. So all of that is down. At that point, I could have stopped and said, I am done.
You're 3-colored.
And this is maybe the crux of our debate earlier, because you primed them in white.
I did. I primed them in white.
So we have
it's a color now.
Yeah.
I would disagree because it was painful seeing a lot of the white that was left on the weapons. So half of the weapons, I had already kind of like been experimenting with them and been like, do I really want to go with bone? Like, I know I'm supposed to be splitting bone, but I'm supposed to be in Kamon, right? I'm in the realm of metal. There should be metal.
Is that how we pronounce that?
Come on.
I don't know.
So I'm like, okay, well, the bone is just not that interesting. It's not popping to me, right? Went through a couple of different recipes, tried white with wash, tried a bone color and highlight up. Nothing was working. And I was like, it's just because they're not heavy metal enough. I need them to be more heavy metal. So I went through, busted out the Necron Compound, which is by far my favorite metal paint right now. It's just showing up everywhere that I try and paint something because it has so much depth to it.
Nice.
And it really reacts well to washes. So I hit about half of them, mostly the Maniac Weird Boys, because I really wanted some extra distinction on the Maniac Weird Boys for myself.
Sure.
Knowing going into the tournament, I've only had maybe about 4 games with this army. And it's literally 2 kits building the entirety of the troops in the army, right? And they're split into 3 different units. The only distinction is one has a shield and the other doesn't, right? Because I'm not going to look for spears. Who looks for spears?
No. Well, and it's so important to have those little things to pick out the characters because, I used to play Dark Eldar in 40K, and I can't even tell them apart. It's my army. So, had this whole, system of backpack flags for everybody. If you were a unit champion, you got 1 backpack flag. If you were a character, you got 2. And one would be the army color, and one would be some sort of York, some sort of thing for you for that character, so that it would I'd be able to easily identify. Now, that worked out great for which models were which. In terms of which things were holding which guns, I don't think even Dark Eldar players can identify the different guns in that army. So it was only halfway solution, but
most of those are just oblong, sharp-looking things that somehow spat death anyway.
Exactly,
and somehow they're ribbed. Half of the weapons are ribbed.
Don't worry about it.
Ribbed for your displeasure.
Exactly. So Matt, we've gotten it's Tuesday. The basing is on. The skin is good. Some of them are shiny, and the cloth is looking
black.
Yep.
So
the black and the white are on.
Yep. I now have an army where if I were to look at it, I'd say some of this is shiny and some of this is not. And I have no idea what's going on. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I know that I've painted my pigs, and I have actually made the distinction there early on the Maniac Weird Knobs, they're a little bit, they've been in it longer. They've been fighting more with their orcs, with their pork. So that bacon is going to be a little bit grayer, a little aged, So they're all gray, as opposed to the regular boar riders, which are going to be brown. So that makes a kind of a clear distinction for me right away, right? And that's something I can point out to an opponent earlier on. If you see a pork on gray, it's a Maniac. If you see a pork on brown, it's just a normal Maniac, right? Because they're all Maniacs when we get down to it. So next I'm like, okay, what am I going to do that's going to break up each one of these units? Because every model looks the same if I'm just standing there, and I really need to update my glasses prescription, right? So we just go ahead and start figuring out colors. I actually stayed away from purple for once, which was really, really hard.
I know that's very difficult for you there, Matt.
Because you got to have a little bit of ravens and everything. So I essentially just started down. I was like, okay, we're going with red. We'll go with red.
Yeah, red squad. It looks like you got red squad, blue squad.
And then black squad.
Black
we're
squad,
all metal,
okay.
Right?
Nice.
So that way I could really tell if anything is smudged in next to the other unit, whether or not, they're plumes or there were bones that I gave the accent to. And each and every model in the unit had a different application of this black and red or black and blue or black and essentially black and white scheme. So different pieces were colored different. So I could still get that kind of like ragtag look and feel, which I feel is very important to myself, I guess. I want each of them to have like a feel like their own personality.
Yeah.
So
no, it's always the like, we're a war band of chaos. Let's all dress the same.
Yeah.
Kind of feel.
Oh, you got that same leotard from TJ Maxx. Nice. Yeah, right. I have it too.
We will be individual in our uniformity.
Yeah. I'm different. I'm not. More Monty Python there for you.
Nice.
Yeah. So after getting that done, it really came down to just making sure, did a couple of passes, did a couple more passes. And I got started on other details that would remind me through the tournament of how much more work I need to do on the army. Because I'm not coming there to win. I'm not coming there to,
you're not coming there to win, Matt. You're coming there to be reminded of future work.
I'm coming there to set a goal, right? So here's the idea. Here, what functionally when I set this incredible journey for myself, which I just finished today. So Tuesday, again, just the black. Wednesday, a little bit of black. Thursday and Friday, red, blue. Okay, yeah, we'll just do this one white. That's fine. We don't need to do much more. Let's just make sure everything's clean, right?
Yeah.
So what I set out to do was to remind myself to play this army more, right? If I'm not going for the top of my tier in ITC, then I need to remind myself that I have so many other armies and I don't have to show up to a tournament to win. I can show up to have fun, play games with my friends that I don't get to see as much because work, life, yada, yada, yada. And also I can get a new hobby goal, right? I can put a check in a box saying, okay, we got this far, but we can go further and make this army actually win a painting competition if we want.
Sure.
If Ricky's not there, or we can, like this, we can, I can set it up on the table. I can look at things. I can see it as it's on the board and get more information about how I want the army to look, right? How I want to feel proud about it in further games.
No, and Matt,
thing.
It's a proud tradition of using the deadline of a tournament or other event to be like, okay, this time I'm actually going to make that display board, or this time I'm actually going to do unit markings, or like this time I'm actually going to finish the freehand on all of my characters.
It's pretty true, because there's just no incentive like that. I mean, I myself am currently in the throes of trying to paint for a tournament, which is one of the only reasons the Therodons are getting the love that they otherwise would not have.
I'm up to 12 now.
That's so many Therodons.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
They're so pretty. They're so nice.
I like
it so hard.
I've only had good experiences with 6.
Oh, just wait till you get to a unit of 9. Oh man, people get sad real fast.
Nice.
Yeah. So how many are you trying to finish before, and what's your time frame? How are you looking at it? How are you setting yourself up for it?
Well, I can share a bit about that, because maybe it's kind of a nice bleed over from that with the Nova prep, in that I'm kind of in that place where I don't have to submit the list yet. The deadline is a bit in the future. And so I have the very tempting siren song of the everything is already painted except for one endless spell list, which is definitely a bit easier. And I would just keep getting my Laoshan the Soul Seeker undercoated and painted. Mm-hmm. A lot of bone on that, very contrast friendly, shouldn't be the worst. I was really only held back today from at least getting undercoated by a very high humidity. So that one I'm not too worried about, but that's like the must do in all the scenarios. But then the list I'd originally been contemplating running was going to involve the 6 Therodons as the new unit, as well as the Corvus Cabal. And I realized with the event being a couple weeks away, a number of work and family things I have to do between now and then, that the Therodons are maybe achievable. The Corvus Cabal are not. They really, really are not. And so I've been trying to figure out how I can get the Therodons to that pleasing tabletop standard where it actually looks good and matches the rest of the army, is thematic, or not, and go with the alternative. And I guess I'm going to see if I can make enough progress to go with the list that includes them, but at least I have a backup plan. I will say that I have concocted the most fun incentive for myself to kind of make me want to finish the painting, which is another one of those kind of mnemonics, right? Where you have the tournament, you figure out the list you want to use, and then you make it a bit more urgency, to sort of impel you on. And that is giving it a crazy pun-based theme.
Okay.
Nice.
Oh yeah. And I'll share this with you in the wide world, because if I manage to stick the landing on getting these 6 Therodons done for this tournament, I might have to name this particular army the Slaves to Dankness. And it'll be as if they're all at a rave, and there'll be some silly dance or pun-based, rhythm name for every single unit.
Nice.
Part of the inspiration actually for this is coming from Miles, whose Slave Darkness collection has sort of come to live in my basement. And so I occasionally can pillage from it or give it a new home. And there are these really, like, almost in the midst of a rave, untamed beasts, what I've always called the untamed beats.
Yes.
And they would be the 80-point swap out for the Corvus Cabal.
Oh, love it.
There you go.
Yeah, because they look great. All I have to do is do their basing. So at that point, like, the pun train would be a moving, right? I mean, there would be the untamed beats. I think the unmade would be the what did I come up with for this one? It was pretty good. Oh, I know.
Is this like the Archer? Oh, I had something for this.
Yeah. Don't wait. All this dead air. We're gonna own it. We're gonna own it. I think I know it. It's coming. It's coming to the ether. The thought is swimming back to my mind. Hold that thought. You guys talk.
Okay. The Untamed Beats, they were such a fun thing to paint, because it was like Warcry had just come out, right? And we'd gotten the Iron Golems and the Untamed Beasts into that starter box. And literally everyone was painting them like they were Conan the Barbarian, right? Or Conan the Barbarian-esque. And I was like, what's the one other thing that they could be? And it was like, they're at Burning Man.
Yeah, it's like they came out of like some like colored dust storm in Burning Man, or they were just at a beach at some rave.
Or what is that festival? Diwali? Is that right?
Yeah, they have some Diwali dust on them for sure. It looks that way. Or I don't know, like they're one of those like sort of Spanish hot spots for nightlife. They're doing all the things, and it is so delightful.
So I gotta ask, do you have a display board for them?
Oh, well, that's the best thing. So follow this. I remember what it was. So the unmade would be the rhythm dissection because nice. They're doing that. I would have the Karkadak and the snake be the eclectic slide. So the electric slide,
nice.
Number of things along that, kind of those lines. I think the Chaos Warshrine would be DJ Depravity. He'd have to be up there saying that. But, if I did do this, I would choose Miles's route to make my quote unquote display board a quickly printed custom mouse pad with our QR code, the name of the podcast, and a background that looked a little ravey or maybe just matched the basing.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I was gonna offer a quick hobby tip on the boards, which I have everything.
Matt, quick hobby tip in that coming in right now.
Oh no!
Hot breaking hobby tip from Matt.
Oh no! We're gonna have to have a jingle there now.
Oh, that'll be good.
So one of my favorite places in the world are the dollar stores, and my favorite time of the year to be at my favorite place in the world, a dollar store, is Halloween.
Okay.
When is Nova happening?
Before Halloween. It's happening right at the end of August. Yeah.
Right at the end of August? So you may be getting Halloween stuff in there.
You could get early Halloween. Okay.
One of the things that they always have are like little LED things that will shoot a bunch of different colors. And so you get one of the whatever the little flashing LED thing is that you just click a button and then it just goes blah, 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 right? Or a tea light that changes colors. There's tons of stuff like that there every year. You can get that, stick it behind a colored film, and then you have your rave party going on.
Nice.
Put it in a little box or a hut, and then you've got your rave hut up in the back, and then you just put like very important, I don't know what very important Therodons or something, right?
Yeah.
But then you have the ultimate like display right there with your flashing lights. That then you've got your full Burning Man complement.
Nice.
I like that idea a lot, especially like it's like up a little ways behind the velvet rope, and like they're just up there, and there's not much of a difference from the rest of like the display board, except that they paid too much up there to get their battle service.
There you go.
That's terrible.
Nice.
I mean, all that's easily done too, right? You just get some rope, a couple of cylinders, and then you're good to go.
It's
just true, so easy to make.
It all comes down to kind of the whole spirit of our discussion of preparing for the tournaments is you get grand ambitions, but what can you accomplish in limited time? This is all first premised on finishing the Therodons. And then maybe finishing the basing for the Untamed Beats. We're still standing on just the cool pressings for the contoured basing, but do not have color on them yet. All doable, but will require a little bit of work and that endless spell.
Yeah.
So then I guess how do you set up your goal time then, or at least figure out whether or not you can do it, right? Because I know there have been a couple of tournaments where I have not set that goal correctly, and I've been like, oh, well, that's looks like I'm using the other list.
I think that's sort of my approach is knowing the big cutoff date, and trying to like figure out if I have the big goal, how much I've moved through it by the time that cutoff date is approaching. So for me, if I am within a stone's throw of those Therodons being done by the time I have to make the list decision in about a week, then I'll excitedly go for it. But if life has gotten in the way or something has delayed it, and I'm looking at, there's not much more progress than now, I'd probably say, okay, I do not want to be in the all-night painting position. On the heels of a drive down to DC. So I will go with the other list and like maybe tighten that up to make sure I have a great experience in that way. So I think it's like preparing for the bail, but then again, once you pass the point of no return, the situation does change, because if I was seized by a special madness and then I was to be 1 hour and whatever much change beyond the point of list submission, I couldn't take it back. And I realized, I have a lot of work to do still, because the clouds have lifted from my eyes. Then it's a matter of prioritization across days. I would count out the days. I figure out the big painting pushes, and I would figure out when it's no longer optional. There's a lot of time we think we might pay, we don't, or something else, comes up, cool video game, new book, or release, something we want to see. Nope.
Can you do other things with your time?
Wait, what are other things?
Yeah.
Not in the sacred painting crunch space.
Exactly.
Because that 4 hours has to happen. And that's, I think, the difference. But you kind of almost like parcel it out. And much the way I think you did, Matt, with your orcs. Like, it really wasn't optional to spend Monday doing bases, was it? At that point.
No, it was really like once I had locked in the list, and that was where like I put together that kind of I did a lot of mental math, right? Like, okay, if I have 5 days out of, what was it, the 7 days in between when I had to submit the list, could I get it out and not be up late the night before the tournament? Right. So
it's funny how you did do it, but you did not succeed in not staying up late the night before the tournament.
Hey, we hear sometimes it always just strikes late have priorities. All right.
Sometimes you just gotta record a quick podcast the late night before the tournament.
It's really, what are the minimum amount of days I think I can accomplish this to the standard that I want to accomplish it. And I think I called it. I did go right up to the very limit of what I could do, but I'm sure anybody in project management knows we always set aside some extra time just in case, right? So
there you go.
All comes down to what you want to do.
A true project manager.
But I think in the end, right, it really comes down to what you want to do, and and knowing what you're going to do before you set out on your project. So I think preparation is 50% of a project for me.
There's definitely a quote about that by someone famous.
That's true.
Yeah,
an important person.
I don't remember what the percentage was, but it's definitely a thing.
I think that was Marty after his fourth walk around trying to get him to relieve himself the other day. He was like, no, preparation first.
Yeah, that's the key to
first.
Yeah,
Marty is my dog.
Sure. No, it sounds good, Matt. I think Matt. We've come to a good place, and we should let you go because it is a big day tomorrow. And we're going to be wishing you all the best of luck in ECO. Say hi to everyone for us. Roll all of the 6s and 1s when appropriate.
Oh,
just ones. We know how I go here.
Yeah,
there we go.
I don't even get to re-roll them. So
I'm just gonna say, surprise everyone, Matt. Pork roll the tournament. Come on top.
I will show up with some bacon that hates. That's for sure.
Oh my god! Just show up with a bunch of like pigs in a blanket and other sort of like pork finger foods, like cocktail sausages.
Yeah.
Just come in. What was the name of that guy who was really big? The Canadian,
big Canadian.
Tom Green. Tom Green.
I thought he was going for John Candy. He wasn't Canadian.
90s, late 90s.
Daddy, would you like some sausage?
Yep. Yeah, I'll just walking around. Daddy, would you like some sausages? I never even saw that movie.
No, I don't think I did either.
Yeah.
I did see a clip of his getting his testicle removed, which was aired live on MTV.
That's a thing that,
Yep, that's a thing. Go look it up.
Millennials had to suffer, apparently.
Well, that's the sort of thing that is left in the past.
Yeah.
Where it stays, Miles, where it stays.
Okay. Well, in that case, I think let's call it a podcast. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And this has been Always Strikes Last.
Absolutely. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the great things. And next time we'll tell you whether or not orcs on orcs or orcs on porks are the new big thing. And
yeah,
whether
they still got it.
I don't know.
Chaos Reigns Party.
Stay tuned.